Hey, what's going on, guys? Today I wanted to make a video on the Eidolon hunt, specifically the bounties in Cetus. This is meant for people who are solo queuing or don't have other people to play with and don't want to look in recruit chat. Although many of the things I'm going to go over can be used in more organized hunts. But this is really just to help players who want to start getting into the Eidolon hunts and gain focus in the arcane rewards. These hunts are without a doubt the best way to gain focus in the game, and the rewards don't count towards your daily cap, so you could do these as well as your daily cap if you're really committed to getting as much focus as possible. I'm going to be going over just the 3 cap, but you can apply the same principles to hunting the Teralyst if that's all you're able to do, and if you're just starting out, I recommend only doing the Teralyst. I'm going to show you guys my build first, and then I'm going to go into the gameplay portion, and I'm going to let a full hunt play out, and I'll do a little commentary over it, but it's about 20 minutes, so if you just want to see the build, then I'll go over that first. And below I'll provide links to different sections of the video if you're only here for one specific purpose. If you're solo queuing in the 3 cap, I would suggest you always play Trinity. You're going to need one in your group, and playing it yourself ensures that the lures will not die. You don't really care about your teammates that much, but the lures are very important. And playing Trinity ensures that they won't die to things like the Gantulyst sky beams. And the way you do that is by casting Bless. So every time you cast Bless, it heals the lures to full and provides them with a damage reduction. The damage reduction is nice, but overall not worth keeping up 100% of the time. So you really care about using your Bless to prevent burst damage. And for this build, Bless is really the only ability you're going to cast. Energy Vampire doesn't give you enough energy to justify using it during the fight. And if you're having energy troubles, I would recommend building some energy restore pads instead of being Xeneric or using another way to gain energy. And if you're being careful with your Bless casts, then you shouldn't need either of these. Which brings me to the build. So on my build, I'm using Arcane Nullifiers, which prevent magnetic procs. If you are having trouble with your energy during the fight, or you're seeming to lose all of it, then it is probably because you are being affected by a magnetic proc that the Eidolon is causing, which makes you lose all of your energy pool. And the best way to prevent this during the fight is to run Arcane Nullifiers. Oberon will also be able to nullify the magnetic proc if you stand in his grass. And as you can see, I have 2 max ranked nullifiers, but you only need 100% total. So that would be either a rank 3 and a rank 0, or a rank 2 and a rank 1. As long as they are equal to 100, you will never be affected by a mag proc during the fight. Other than that, I am using a pretty standard Trinity Bless build. I just have power strength to give me max damage reduction and heal, and then duration and efficiency. And you'll see I'm using enemy radar. You can substitute this for any other dash polarity, such as corrosive or energy siphon. I'm just using it because it helps a little bit with finding Vombalists during the first lure. Next up is my Lanka build. This is what I'm using during the video. I do have a Riven, but I'm not currently using that. It's a pretty standard sniper build. You just want to make sure you have radiation damage, as radiation has a 75% damage boost on the Eidolon's armor. And you do not need the status to proc for that to occur, so you always have that boost as long as this says radiation with the number. And I'm using heavy caliber because, for my testing at least, when you're scoped in, it doesn't actually affect the sniper rifle, and that's just a bunch of extra damage. You can substitute any of these mods or use lower ranked ones if you don't have the capacity or endo. But as your primary damage dealer, I'd recommend using a sniper rifle, so that would include the Vectis, the Lanka, or the Rubico would be my top 3 choices. Please don't be that guy out in the plains with an Opticore or something else, as they are not as effective as snipers. And then for my companion, I'm using an Adarza Kavat. You don't have to use this, but the Cat's Eye buff does give you increased crit chance, which applies to the base crit of your weapon, making it very good for dealing increased damage to the Eidolons during the damage phases. But like I said, not necessary, and the cats die pretty often. So if you want to run a Sentinel just to suck up the loot easier, then feel free. And as for gear, you can use a couple pieces of gear for the fight. Most notably the energy restores and the Archwing launchers. If you don't have resources to do this, they're definitely not necessary, but they do make it easier on you during the fight. And the last thing I want to go over for this is the focus schools. If you're solo queuing, I'd recommend you just run Maturai with the Void Strike node. This is going to increase both your damage to the shields and the damage to the Eidolon pieces, especially if you don't have a damage booster in your group. This can be a very strong source of damage for you and allow you to carry random people through the fight if they don't have proper setups. And as for your equipment on your operator, you're going to want either a 223 or 323 amp. As you can see here, I have a 323. And as for arcanes, if you have them, you're going to want to run Magus Vigor or Magus Husk. Some combination of these. You can have two or one of each, like I have. It's all really up to you. And for my arcane on my amp, I have a Virtuous Fury, which procs whenever I use my secondary fire. And on this amp, I basically just use secondary fire all the time. I don't really use the primary fire. But that does it for the build section. I'm going to play a 3-cap that I did earlier in a public group. And I'll put commentary over what I'm doing and my thought process while doing it to hopefully give you guys a better understanding of how to do the fight. So what you just saw me do was accept the 3-cap bounty. If you're starting out, you might want to just do the single Teralyst cap. But once you accept, you just go right into the Plains of Eidolon. And it'll pair you with 4 random people. Here, this is pretty typical. You got paired with a couple people who have builds that are useful, and then you have a Mesa. If you're doing random, it's going to queue you with people who don't know what they're doing pretty often. So just be aware of that. Also, I'd like to say starting out that there are a myriad of bugs that are associated with doing the Eidolons, and you're going to run into them, so it's good to just be aware of that going in. And what you see me doing here is I went directly to the camp to the left and picked up a lure. That's a good camp to pick up your first lure at, as there's always one there, and it's very close to the entrance. I then summoned an Archwing to try to get Vombalist quickly, and if you fly low to the ground with the lure, it will follow you. So you can zip around and find 3 Vombalists to charge the first lure, which will help you complete the Eidolon faster. And that's really what you're looking for in these bounties. If a charged lure is not attached to the Eidolon, it will teleport when you break one of its limbs, which is something you should avoid during these fights, as it makes it much longer. Once I have it charged, I come back to the Teralyst, and I start damaging it and breaking its limbs. If you're going to use an Archwing for this, I'd recommend using an Itzal, as its 1 allows you to move very quickly across large distances, and its 2 allows you to go invisible, which helps when you're trying to hack lures, and 3 is very useful for sucking up loot in a large radius. The longer that you stay crouched in Void mode, the bigger your damage multiplier is going to be on your Void Strike, which in turn makes your operator deal more damage, as well as your weapon shots. And you can see the exact percentage in the top right corner of the screen upon exiting Void mode.
That device is insufficient. You are directed to secure and employ additional Eidolon lures.
And as I mentioned, I only use Bless to heal during heavy damage phases. For the most part, your teammates should not be taking much damage, because they should be in operator form the majority of the fight. Staying crouched in operator mode makes you immune to pretty much everything during the fight. So while you're not in your Warframe, you should be in your operator, and if your operator dies, you can simply transfer back into it. So every time he does his energy spike, I try to charge my Void Strike up as much as possible to take down the shields faster. The faster you get the shields down, the faster you can shoot, and hopefully if you have a fairly well built group, you'll be able to take the limbs down quickly.
Energy spike. I advise falling back.
The Teralyst needs 2 lures to capture, Once both lures are charged and attached to the Teralyst, it'll say sentient energy contained. This is the same for the next two Eidolons, except for both of those need 3 lures. So in total that would be 8 lures for the full capture. And you can get those early or later on. But if you get them early, you want to make sure you have at least one charged, as having more than one can make it difficult to fully charge a lure. And once the Eidolon stands up for the final time, you can capture him. And after the capture, one of the lures will break and drop the shard and arcane. After each Eidolon has been captured, you want to place your shard then in the middle of this lake. You can bullet jump from either side, or you can use your operator form to dash across. As you can see here, the Mesa is having a little difficulty, but I think one of my teammates ends up throwing down an Archwing for him so that he can get across the lake. And once all shards have been placed, the next Eidolon in the series spawns. And I went to the wrong side of the lake on this one. But at this point I had a pretty stacked up Void Strike, which helped get the initial shield down faster. Any downtime you have should be spent charging your Void Strike. Here I only had 3 shots, but you can have up to 8, and the bigger the stack, the faster the shields will go. If you have a teammate who's a Volt, then shooting through the Volt shields will also amplify your damage, and is very good at taking shields down. The second and the third Eidolons have 6 limbs that you need to shoot, as opposed to the Teralyst 4. They're in the same positions on both. They each have 2 arms, 2 knees, and 2 armpits that you can shoot.
Energy spike. I advise falling back. That device is insufficient. You are directed to secure and deploy additional Eidolon lures.
And here you can see the Oberon's grass. If I didn't have Arcane Nullifier, I could leave my Warframe on that grass, and it would negate the magnetic procs.
Energy spike. I advise.
Sometimes it can be difficult to shoot their limbs, so positioning is everything. And the hitboxes are kind of funny, so it does take practice. I've done a lot of these and I still have difficulty hitting sometimes.
Energy spike. I advise falling back.
So once again, when the energy is contained, he goes down like this. And when he stands back up, you can shoot and capture him, so long as the 3 lures are attached. If you drag the lures out of range, that could be an issue, because if they're not in range, then the Eidolon could die instead of being captured, and if it dies, you can't do any more Eidolons. We got a rare drop breach loader, which I was kind of excited about. Here you can see me capture 2 lures very quickly, and I'm just doing this to ensure we have enough for the next Eidolon. This is really showing why using the Archwing in combination with Ciphers can make grabbing the lures very quick, which gets you to the next Eidolon faster. You don't need an Archwing or Ciphers to pick up the lures, it just makes it faster, and since I have a couple hundred of each, I'm not too worried about spending them. But if you have more limited resources, then it's definitely fine to just take the time and grab the lures slower. The only thing speed does for you in this fight is allow you to get multiple captures in the same night, which is more focus or arcanes or whatever else you're farming for. But if you've seen the Gantulyst capture, then you'll be able to capture the Hydrolyst. It's essentially the same thing. They do have different damaging attacks, but for the most part, you're just going to be ignoring them by being in operator mode. The one big noticeable difference is this will summon Vombalist blooms, which are glowing purple orbs that link to Vombalists, and they make the Vombalists immune, which can be a problem if too many pile up and attach to the Eidolon itself. If this happens, then the Eidolon starts regenerating his shields until all the Vombalists have been destroyed, but in most scenarios, you'll be going quickly enough where that won't be an issue.
Energy spike. I advise falling back. victory. Act now.
And once the last Eidolon has been captured, you can collect your loot from the lure, and then go back and do it all over again. Or not, whatever you want to do. Each triple capture will result in roughly 230,000 focus and 3 arcanes. And you can do up to 5 a night if you have an organized group. My group's personal record is 4 captures in 1 night. But that's it for the video, so I hope you guys found this helpful. I know I probably missed a couple things, so if you have any specific questions about certain parts of the fights, please let me know in the comments below, and be sure to leave a like and subscribe for future content.